And good morning, everybody. Welcome to At Your Service. This is the half hour we spend with Stan's Garden Center. Of course, we kick off with a little Foo Fighters.
Infamous.
Great song to All My Life. One of their best tunes, in my opinion. That's an intense song.
I like them all. I really, yeah. I don't, and this all started in the passing of their drummer.
That's right.
But yeah, I don't know. Somewhere along the line, I became a Foo fan. And I can probably find a reason to turn it into a garden, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and it's just self-indulgent. I like them.
I will. You know what? I will make a connection. By the way, this is Josh Skarzinski of Stan's Garden Center, of course. I will make a connection because the Foos are a band that like everybody likes. What's the plant that everybody likes? Is there one that, like the Foo Fighters, just everybody seems to love?
You should be in radio. You can spin anything because I don't even see it coming. Like I know the rest of them don't.
You rarely find a detractor when somebody goes, I don't like those guys. They're not cool.
Yeah, people would, and there's also bands that were like wildly popular, and now it's like taboo to like them.
Exactly.
Was it Nickelback?
Nickelback, they're trying to do that with Imagine Dragons. They're trying to make them like
uncool.
They're not cool.
Yeah, like
don't like them.
Once
now.
you get to a certain point and too many people like you,
yes,
then all of a sudden it's uncool. I'm really trying hard as a family business to not become that business that everybody likes. So don't like us too much because we don't want to be taboo to visit.
That's right.
That being said, that I have the first thing that pops into my head as far as what everybody loved and adored and planted in the tens of thousands, and then it became taboo. So, people that listen to the show are going to think that this is actually rehearsed and we have notes and because it does tie together and it does flow.
It does.
Was just the regular impatient.
Oh, yeah.
The regular impatient was the thing. Everybody would come in and like, oh, I want a little of this. I'm going to do a little shopping. I'm like, oh, maybe I like that hanging basket for this year. Maybe we're going to do this in the back. You know what? This year I'm going to plant broccoli. I haven't done that in years. Mm-hmm. But they would walk out with a flat or two or three or four of impatient.
Always.
It was like having a soda with fast food. Like it's just the thing to do. And impatience then became taboo because of downy mildew. Downy mildew was a disease that was present in the southern part of the United States very readily. One of the large aggressive hurricanes that when you see the map of the big swirl of green that came from the Gulf that lasted all the way up through Maine was scientifically very strongly believed to be the reason that downy mildew was kind of weather-related shoved this far northeast. It did not used to be a thing. It's like, I don't want to use that analogy, but there was this disease once that came from China that,
I've
was
heard a thing or two about that.
That was a big problem around the world, and there used to be a big problem with downy mildew in the South, very strong in Texas, the Gulf area, and then now it swept through the Northeast. And I don't know how many years. It was probably 6, 7, 8. My memory is getting so bad in my old age. It was probably 15 years. I don't know.
Could have been.
But there was a number of years where everybody started just shying away from, and the very savvy gardeners that did impatiens every year were starting to come in after 2 or 3 years of failure saying, it seems like the end of July, beginning of August, I have nothing but just sticks where my impatiens once were.
Yeah.
And, for us that were in the know about what was going on, we're like, that's downy mildew. And they're like, huh? Why? I've planted these for 20 years. I'm like, well, things have changed.
Not in this region, right?
Things have changed.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of educate, like, hey, there's this thing now that's out there that, has the world has changed, and because of this hurricane, there is this disease that's wiping them out. So what happened, and now that we're beyond this, because we are, that's the whole spin to, like, what has become taboo, what everybody loves to use. Everybody started migrating towards, and the industry started looking for things that replaced that plant that was massively popular, that filled large areas of part sun to shade, that was resistant to. And that became divine impatiens, which is more of a New Guinea style of new patience. So there's the Latin side. It's like Hakurai and Walleriana. There's two, like you could have lots of carpenters, but they're not all the same.
No.
So the impatient had different strains. A lot of the New Guinea style impatiens, then the industry started chasing seed driven so that it could produce this much broader scale, much more affordable than the cutting driven New Guinea. So it took a few years, and the industry did kind of catch up. And there's Divine and some other styles that also shot the Sun Patient, which is a New Guinea style impatient, through the roof, because that genetics was exempt to downy mildew. It's a totally different kind of leaf, totally different kind of stem, just a different plant in general. Even though it is an impatient, it's not the Walleriani, the seed-driven impatient that everybody knows as.
But it serves the same function for the the homeowner.
Same environment, same culture. Not quite the aggressive fill, but it fit the bill. A little bit pricier, but it wasn't dying. What good is investing $100 in a flower bed if by 1st of August it sticks?
Right.
So if you put good money into that different kind of impatient, you could at least know that it was going to be there till frost. So a lot of people shied away. And up in New Jersey, where it was really bad because the disease was ignited by certain specific cultural events in the weather. So if you had a early season, like say the first week of May, second week of May in Jersey, you had a couple evenings that were in 52 to 55, like right now, that would ignite the disease, and then mid-July they'd be gone. So the Jersey growers, and Jersey's a big. I mean, I think their slogan on their license plates are the Garden State.
Yeah.
So they have a huge industry of ours up there. They stopped growing as large commercial operations. Walleriani seed-driven impatiens entirely. Like you couldn't go to Jersey and find impatiens because it was such a poor investment from the wholesale grower to the retailer. Like sometimes they weren't making it even to the shelf. They were going bad in the tray before anyone would even plant them. So that had us really being that it was probably the number one and maybe number two to geraniums in certain markets. What do we do now? That's like taking the hamburger off the American culture of food. What do we do? And so it took a number of years, and the industry, as far as the seed, the genetics, really started working hard at this. And the Netherlands shared some genetic material with us, and the Netherlands had impatiens that were exempt to downy mildew. There was a genetic marker, and I've said this over and over again, please don't misunderstand GMOs, because it was not a synthetically modified DNA. It was DNA naturally found in very specific group of impatiens that was resistant to that. It fought that disease on its own. It had a natural immunization that was just a tiny little marker of DNA beyond the science of what you and I will ever understand, that these scientists found, and it was shared with our genetic. I'm sure there was money involved
of course.
in the American production of seed from the Netherlands. So the Netherlands were kind enough to spread this genetic that now makes impatiens free. It's not an issue anymore.
Yeah.
Which I hope and pray that, in a year or two down the road, that the evolution of disease and things that disrupt our daily life happens with COVID, for instance. But that happened with impatiens. It was a bad epidemic, and we declined our numbers by like 60%. And now when you see the Imara label, which is one company's XDR, extra disease resistant, or the Beacon series, both of them are totally free. So I think I've talked about that on the show before, but you said, what is the GoTo?
Well,
that GoTo changed because of that disease, and now I'm here to tell you that you can welcome back impatiens. So if it's been 10 years, I used to do impatiens in that bed. I don't do that anymore because they always get sick. You can go back to the Amara and the Beacon really comfortably. We were part of the seed trial at Stan's when they first launched Beacon.
Is that right?
Yep. When we have a very strong relationship with Ball Horticulture. I've had lunch numerous times with Anna Ball, the owner, CEO of that company, which is
big time,
hundreds of millions of dollars in the horticulture industry. They're from Chicago. They're a family business like ours that grew in the genetic side of things, and they're the largest distribution of green material in the world.
Wow.
So they are
a legendary name.
They are
phenomenal.
Well, in the grower side of things, if you owned a garden center back in the 80s and grew anything, The Ball Red Book, which was written by her grandfather, Anna's grandfather, was pretty much the book to have. You had to have it on your shelf if you wanted to know the growing culture in a greenhouse for a geranium, an impatient, a begonia, a marigold. If you wanted to know the pH, the water, the light, that book was like pretty much the first Bible of the grower for, the back in, I think it was originally written in the 60s. It was her grandfather. And then it migrated down through series after series after series. And it's kind of gone, I don't want to say it's gone away, but it's not become what a must be on the shelf because of the internet. Now all the culture sheets are actually on Ball's website. But all that information started from Ball.
That's interesting.
And we have a fantastic, an actual really, really amazing relationship with Ball Horticulture. So, and I have a fantastic relationship with our rep, who is previously a grower and knows. You can call up our grower, or our rep, and say, "Hey, I got this question about this and this and this," and he'll know right off the cuff. Not, I'll get back to you. He knows. He was a grower, and he keeps up on it, and it is his passion, like it is mine. And so it's really neat to sit with people in the room that do that passionately. So. We were part of the Beacon trial. We were one of the first ones in the U.S. to grow them in the greenhouse in packs. We actually took some of the colors and put them in our display gardens at the Eastside location. And I took pictures and sent them back to Ball, the people that gave us this trial, and said, absolutely amazing. Like, here it is, October, and they were still absolutely glorious, nice dark green, no just dead sticks like they used to be. Still blooming, everything's fantastic, and that was the launch of the XDR series of impatiens.
Well, it's interesting you talk about this because, Erie can be, our people in the Erie area, I'll say, can be, let's say kindly, a little less than progressive. And over the weeks that we've talked, you talk about like the sun patience, you talk about I saw some of the new varieties of tomatoes when I was in the store a couple of weeks ago. And if you're not, making use of Stan's staff and their knowledge and saying, look, is there something hardier? Is there a better variety of this I could maybe try? If you're not doing that, you're really missing out. If you're going, well, I always used whatever kind of tomato, whatever kind of flower. If you're doing that, you're really missing out, I think.
If that is your, that's another great point. You're on your game today. You must have a couple extra cups of coffee in your Kiss cup today. Because that it absolutely is. And that's how impatiens got to be so big. And I don't mean big like big plant. I mean just like popular. Literally by the tens of thousands of flats. And then all of a sudden, people were dumbstruck. What do I do? I've done this for 10, 15, 20 years. I've always put them. I love them. What do I do? And it made them kind of think outside the box and
they were forced to
ask more questions and stuff. So the tomato is the absolute, like they've named the Better Boy. The Better Boy has been around as long as I've been around. It's been around as long as you've been around. So it's an ancient tomato.
That's an old tomato.
But the name was Better Boy back then, and no disrespect to like the Burpee folks and whatever, but it's a standby that's still there because your grandfather knew Better Boy,
right? But
anymore, it's not really that awesome compared to some of the stuff that comes out.
Yeah,
you're talking about some of the new stuff like Burpee has one that we grew this year that has not flown off the shelf because simply. It's unknown. Everybody knows Early Girl. Early Girl is just like Better Boy, Big Boy. All those original old-fashioned Burpee hybrids are still there simply because everybody comes in. Well, now there's an earlier tomato than Early Girl. It's 4th of July. That's the name of it. It's
and everybody wants as early a tomato as they can
get.
Right.
I mean, we live in Erie that has 6.5 days of summer. So
sure.
We want that to turn quickly. So if you want the earliest, it might not be the best slicing tomato you've ever had, but that's what it's touted as being a sandwich slicer, a regular roadside stand style tomato that is, fairly disease resistant and easy to grow. And, and Burpee's worked on this. They've done this for a reason. They want a quick disease resistant tomato for Erie, PA, and north. Growing season in Maine, the ground is cold up there till mid-May. I mean, it's very difficult to get what you want in the short season. So that's the reason for 4th of July. So I plant Early Girl every year. That's where your point is absolutely well received in the sense that this industry, I've used this analogy before, is tripping over one another, working feverishly and faster than the cell phone industry to come up with the next best camera, the next best
Right.
Instagram, whatever they're doing on their phones. They got nothing on the horticulture industry. There's so many genetic hands involved around the world that it's just amazing what comes out. And it's getting to the point anymore where my brain is slowing and they are picking up pace. I'm struggling and have to have more staff to keep track of it all. Because I used to be able to be like, yep, I know this. Oh, this is new. Now I find myself taking Alyssa's question or asking Alyssa questions about what is that? Where'd that come from? Oh, that's new from so-and-so because that's her wheelhouse now. She's kind of grabbed the reins, ripped them away from me and said, I got this plant material-wise, and she's doing a phenomenal job. That being said, I can't be, and I want this to be public on the radio. Like, I don't know if you've followed the evolution of stands starting in 1954. My grandfather, then my dad built it to what it is now, and this is my first year at the helm. My dad retired last season, was his last season, and so from my inaugural season, don't get me wrong, I've been doing this my entire life. It's nothing new.
Yes.
But having my dad retire and stuff, I couldn't be happier with in a tough market of labor right now, which all industries are seeing. I couldn't be happier with how our season has gone for, rolling with the punches for, a very slow, very cold, very low income April, turning into one of the most aggressive Mays. That being said, it was a record May ever for stands. So everybody keeps thinking that, the economy, this, that, prices and stuff. In the green industry, for people to stay home, to have outside living space, to improve their surroundings around them, is relatively a lower income chunk than going out and buying a $100,000 RV or a new boat or something like that.
Or a few pounds of chicken. At this point,
or a gallon of gas, but the green industry has been and has seen a great increase because of some of the stay at home, like back to family. Maybe it's instilled a change of values for home living space and things like that.
Sure.
So the green industry has had a very rapid change, which is hard for a long-term family business to adapt and change. I couldn't be prouder of our staff and how they have really risen to the occasion, cooperated. I mean, it's tough to go from 0 to 1,000. I mean, there's 80 staff now, and
sure.
it's a big undertaking to change that quickly and grow as much as we can. So I know there's been disappointments on the side too, like this year, because the edibles have gone up so much. Seemingly, we're always out of cucumbers, a little low on lettuce, because it's not that we didn't know what to do. We've done this for years. It's that, if you get 600 more people that want cucumbers, they disappear pretty quick. So
sure.
It's been, and we're trying, we're adapting, we're changing our schedules and everything. It's a constant, big moving process. But I just wanted that to be out there, being now that we're hitting June. I don't want it to sound like we're done, because we're running sales this weekend. Even we are still 8 to 8 Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6 on Sunday. We're still got the hammer down. We have stocked the benches after last weekend's Memorial Weekend to the gills.
Well, and after my mom shopped too, she depleted the place pretty bad. But they've restocked since my mom got done shopping.
Yeah, I was wondering, can your mom stop in again this weekend?
Oh, she would love to. She would love nothing more. But what I sort of want to stress too is, if you are somebody who is thinking, okay, well, these things have been growing, maybe there's a better variety, maybe there's something advanced that's easier to grow, hardier. You go to the big box stores, they probably don't know what to tell you. You go to stands, they know. They not only know about that product, you can talk to them, they can recommend one. I know you talked a couple of weeks ago about roses, and I remember my mom, as I just mentioned, growing roses when I was a kid, and it was painstaking. I mean, it was a real endeavor. And now, because of advances, it's a lot easier with some of these varieties.
Yeah, we did touch base on that, and there is, we still have the Weeks rose that is the grafted rose that will have a lot of the old-fashioned standby names like that. That crop literally starts in January, and we grow that in-house as well. Thousands. We have one dedicated house that is cared for and cultured for roses specifically. And then the last few years, it has just gone through the roof. Roses have come back. They are not taboo anymore. They are not. They're definitely trending.
They should never. Roses are like martinis.
Yeah.
They should never be out of style.
One of the reasons for that, like when folks come in, especially if they're kind of new to their outside landscapes, they're like, I ripped out the front. I'm going to start over. So they haven't. That's not what they. Maybe their industry had nothing to do with that before in their careers, and now all of a sudden they're kind of shoved into like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to rip this out. I'm going to redo. One of the assets to roses is that they bloom from late spring all the way through. So when you have, like, for example, just to throw it out, a really well-known name, the shade-loving azalea. They bloom in the early spring, mid-spring. That's it. They're a green bush the rest of the year. So a lot of folks, when they say, I want perennials, I want shrubs, they have the kind of just unknowing misconception that, that white Julia is really, really pretty. I want that. Well, it doesn't look like that all year round.
Right.
Oh, you can see a little bit of letdown and well, how long? Well, a number of weeks. And then you'll get other little bloom. That's how the perennial world generally is. Annuals are so immensely popular because they bloom all summer long. So if you're going to work with some perennials to take up some real estate that come back every year, they're generally going to have a window of opportunity. So back to the roses. Roses are so wildly popular, not only because they are absolutely stunning and can stop you in your tracks. You could be walking in the front door and be like, whoa, look at that.
Literally.
We had a new rose that I don't want to sound like I'm pushing it because it's gone. And for right reason. And I rolled the dice. We grew like 40 of them. Normally we get like dozens of all the specialty roses. We grew like 40 of Sunset Horizon, designed by the same people that do the knockout roses and the drift rose and stuff, star roses. Same company. And I have a great relationship with our rep for them too. And he said, if you have one other rose other than our landscape series roses, which is where I'm going with this, you got to have Sunset Horizon. And I'm like, okay, I'll take your word for it. And he's like, trust me when I tell you, it is a crazy seller. It is, 3 times what any other roses. It's absolutely stunning. And then we grew it, and oh my goodness, just a phenomenal plant. I mean, no powdery mildew. I mean, seemingly very disease resistant, really dark green, lush leaves, and a bloom that has like 4 different colors in it that kind of evolves and changes. It looks like what you would consider like a picture of fire on your cell phone, like orange and yellow and red. It looks like a flickering flame called Sunset Horizon. Well, probably the analogy should have been more like the sunset off the lake in Erie. That's probably what it would be, looks like, in oranges and yellows and such. But I was just shocked, and the rep did us right, because they weren't in the nursery but a couple of days once they were
launched. As soon as people saw them.
Yeah, they were absolutely stunning. So you're absolutely right with saying, like, what's new, what's trending, and it's very difficult for us to even keep on top of it because there is so much. But if you're saying, well, I plant alyssum here every year, maybe look at lobularia. It is an alyssum that is driven by cutting, little higher price point, but the price point isn't nothing compared to the performance of what you get compared to the old-fashioned seed alyssum. Yeah, but I do that every year. At least ask around. There's things that probably you didn't even know of. Our industry, and I seemingly can still remember the line in the sand when it went from seed-driven flats of coleus to the hundreds of specialty coleus. Like, there didn't used to even be that as a thing. Like, if you put $5 pots of coleus on the bench in the 80s, you'd be throwing every single one out. They just wouldn't be of value to it. And the industry has changed so much because the performance of that material that you get has been realized. Now the market has HGTV and Pinterest, and wow, look at that, I want that. Strobilanthus, the Persian shield, that wasn't even a thing when I was a kid. So it's been brought to the market, and it really does a phenomenal job in the garden. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And there's all kinds of other things like it.
Yeah, and that's why, as I said, if you go to stands, take your time, look around, ask. And get some guidance, because they know about products, they know about things that you, even as a well-educated just consumer, probably don't know about. And it may be something you're growing that they've got a better variety of, that's easier to grow and grows more heartily, or it may be. Maybe you want to try something different than what this is a whole new thing for Erie. Try something different than what you've been doing the past 10 years. There's a whole new idea.
The neat thing for us from a business perspective is that we get a little bit of a delay. Like what is hot, for instance, the fairy garden thing. That was huge on the West Coast. And then we had a couple of years to prepare for the industry to shake out all the little trinkets and the containers and how to do it and everything. And then it became a thing in Erie. We're like on a 2-year delay from the West Coast. So it kind of creeps to the east. So when plants get trialed and worked out in whatever central or southern California, then eventually it comes this way. So we get a little prelude to what's going to happen in the industry, like succulents. We could see that coming. I can see now bonsai coming back. I can see a lot of interest in that. I just started a conversation with a local artist that's probably going to display their material at stands now. We're going to get back into the bonsai thing.
Nice.
I think that was probably COVID related as well. People stayed home and like, that's interesting.
Time to take care of this and train it and do the whole procedure.
So from my perspective, having done this every day, and if you can't tell from listening to the radio, I am still absolutely passionate about this. I really enjoy it. I like going to work every day, much to the lament of my wife. She thinks I like to go to work too much. She takes it personally that I would rather go to work than stay home with her. I'm like, that's not really the truth, but I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I'll explain it later.
And it is the neat thing for me is probably like you finding a really awesome band that no one's heard of.
Oh yeah.
And you'd be like, you probably talk about it for 2 weeks. Like, you guys got to go see them. Oh man, they're the next greatest thing. Whether they make it or not in the mainstream, big time, telling people about this. You got to listen to this. This is great. I get that same feeling from someone that comes up and says, yeah, I've had this area. I've been struggling. It's not been working very good for a couple of years. One, I appreciate that they're still here doing it instead of pouring concrete on that corner. And then when I finally chat through and say, oh, yeah, this. Oh, wait a minute. You got shade midday and it stays kind of damp there. A petunia is not the thing to have. That's gonna want to be over here. You describe this. Just switch those two. I'm going to show you another plant over here that you probably never thought of that works perfect for that.
Exactly.
And then they come back the next year and go, oh, I chatted with you, which I see so many people over and over. I don't remember. I'm like, okay, what did I tell you? I don't remember. And I did this and this and this. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good recommendation. I loved it. It was awesome. I want it again. Okay, good, because that is the fun part of the crossword puzzle of putting it in. And I always tell people, and you can see the aha moments. I get so many, especially young people, that come in and say, oh, I can't believe I'm even here. I kill everything. And if I'm not being pulled in 7 different directions, I'm like, wait a minute, come here. I want to be like Seiji's teachers and be like, sit down. I'm going to teach you to read, and be like, okay, explain
not
to
me,
me,
kill things.
Yeah, explain to me what you do and what the reason you say I kill everything. And after just a couple minute conversation, I'll be like, whoa, you don't need to water twice a day. This is how you water. And I go through my long explanation that I've done on the air before about proper watering.
We should probably do that next week again. We're almost out of time.
Yep.
But we should probably talk about watering next week.
And we can talk about whatever you want.
We should.
And it is usually an aha moment, and you get that a little bit of a shocked, dumbfounded, like, oh. And then I said, I truly hope in your horticulture world, I just changed your life. Because now maybe you're 24 years old and you said, all my life, my mom was great at everything. Everything grew. And now that I have my own apartment, I can't keep anything alive. I kill everything. And I said, oh, in perfect definition, you just love it to death. Give it a little space, or simply know what the plant material is and what it wants and where it belongs. You have to mimic its normal life where it was. So that being said, we have a sale going on this weekend. I mentioned sales in May and June are kind of taboo for us. Like, we've kind of just let things be.
But you got them.
We have kind of an idea what looks like we're going to have a little bit of excess, maybe an abundance of. Now, everything that we're getting rid of now that's going out the door is still high end, good quality. This is not August leftovers. We have a ton, an absolute ton. thousands of
Okay.
4.5-inch pot cascading aggressive petunias, like the proven winner stuff, not the bedding petunias, but the big fill your window boxes hanging basket petunias. They're all buy one get one the first weekend in June, unheard of. We have citrus that is hugely sought after and hard to get right now. Meyer lemon and lime trees, 30% off. And we also have lilacs, which we have a huge crop of. We grew some ourselves, and some came from Ohio. We have a huge selection of every lilac on the earth, 30% off as well. Our hours are still Monday through Saturday, 8 to 8, Sunday, 9 to 6.
That all sounds fantastic. Thank you, Josh. We're going to wrap up. Ironstone Meadery is next.